Hello there and welcome to a brand new episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. My name is Craig Gordon Telfer and right this very second I am joined by my close associate Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
And you know what happens when the Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos of the Terrace get together? That is right, we are going to form the greatest power couple in the history of Philippine politics. We will declare martial law for 9 years. We will plunge the country into extreme poverty while taking billions of dollars from the central bank to furnish their own nests. Our regime will be described as far right, a kleptocracy, corrupt and brutal. And while we've been exiled to Hawaii to live out the remainder of our lives, we might just get the chance to talk about some lower league Scottish football.
Now, you know something, it's funny when you initially mentioned that duo of names, I'm like, oh, I feel like I do know a wee bit about them, but probably not enough if it wants me to join into some kind of conversation about them. But you've literally just, I suppose, explained them very, very well. Sound like bad eggs.
Yes.
Much badder eggs than I initially anticipated.
It's estimated they took between $5 and $10 million from the Philippine bank just to spend on themselves during that period.
But is that much money? Like, to take out of an economy? Like, if you're in charge of a country, like if you were in charge of Scotland, for example, if you had an opportunity to take £5 or £10 million, that doesn't sound that much.
Billion.
Oh, right. That's loads. That would leave a mark. That really would.
I was thinking, fucking hell, this is your threshold for corruption is very, very, very low.
No, that's a different story. They're really bad.
Yeah, you just hadn't heard me properly. There we go. Aye. So Shaughan and I will be delivering one of our patented 3-game podcasts. So we'll be looking at one match from the Championship, another from League One, and a big game from League Two. We can guarantee plenty of talking. We cannot guarantee having a laugh, but we will do our best. And before we get going, Shaughan, can I check in? How are you? Is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, Shaughan. I'm very well. I had a red letter day on Saturday because I was doing the stadium announcing at Hampden for Motherwell versus St Mirren in the League Cup semi-final, which was a lot of fun.
I was going to ask you about this. Like, A, I suppose, how did you get involved? And B, how much fun was it?
Well, B, loads. It was brilliant. The day went like that. I was to be at Hampden 4 hours before kickoff, and I thought, my goodness, that's a lot of time. There's going to be a lot of hanging about. The seconds went like that, and the day was over and done with. So it was loads of fun. But I got asked. It's the Whoosh, the company that's run by Keith and Graham Easton, who people might know from the stadium announcers at Hampden. And they do the stadium announcing at Tynecastle, and that is ultimately how the spot opened up, because Hearts were playing at 3 o'clock at Tynecastle on Saturday. This match, the League Cup semi-final, was taking place at 5:30. They couldn't be in two places at once, so they got in touch with me. They'd heard my excellent work at Stranraer Football Club between 2015 and 2020 and asked if I'd give it a shot. So I thought, yeah, why not? It'd be a lot of fun, and it was brilliant. And I was obviously taking Graham's place because he's the announcer between the two. Yeah, Keith, his brother, does all the behind the scenes stuff, all the techie stuff. So I was taking Graham's place, but it was brilliant. Keith is an absolute pro to work with, an absolute dream. And basically, they have been doing this now for, I think it's more than a decade. They've been stadium announcing at Hampden, so they have got the thing down to a fine art. They said previously they used to turn up with a big box of CDs and just play them the songs one after the other, but now everything is structured so you know what you're saying when you're saying it. You've got talkback, so you've got like an inner earpiece, a radio microphone, and Keith controls the radio microphone when it's on and when it's off. So you can have conversations with him just where you're sitting down, and he can say, right, you're going live, and you say, right, let's go with the St Mirren team, min goals, yada yada yada. The best bit, because I couldn't quite hear everything because you've got the headphones in, so you're mostly tuned in to what Keith's saying. Uh-huh. The best bit, I think it was the third goal, it was Richard King's goal to put St Mirren 3-1 ahead. And it goes, goal for St Mirren, number 5, Richard King. Yes, in the aftermath. So it was class, man. It was absolutely loads of fun. And on top of that, really good game. Loads to discuss. I had to instruct a woman to contact her nearest steward of police. What a rush that was. It was just great, man. It was a great experience getting to do something like that at Hampden. Just aye, great fun. And like I say, working with Keith was brilliant. So yes, would highly recommend it.
When you say you replaced Graham Easton, did you have to do anything on the park, maybe in terms of a quiz at half time?
No, there was no quizzes. Not going up to boys and asking them if you think Kieran Tierney is Scotland's record appearance holder. Nothing like that. It was all just pretty straightforward stuff. So aye, loads of fun.
That last quiz he did was absolutely exceptional. The last question where it was like how many kilometres from, I think, Hamden to, so maybe like a stadium in Mexico, maybe in Guadalajara.
Yeah.
And the person answered about 110. So my goodness, that barely gets you over Hadrian's Wall. Never mind to Mexico. See when you say that they were thoroughly impressed, but I know you're very much tongue in cheek by your time doing something similar at Ochil View. Were they aware that you once got asked to please stop playing the same? Was that a Christmas song or just a song over and over again?
No, you're right. It was Indulge Jubilo by Mike Oldfield.
How many times did you play it?
I think it got to midway through the third rendition before being asked to turn it off and put on something better. You know, it was just a shit post really from me. I just wanted to see how long I could play the same thing before someone noticed, and then ultimately there's your answer. 2.5 times.
Sounds like it didn't have a negative impact, because here you are.
Here we are, yeah, there you go. If you still can have a laugh when you're doing the stadium announcer, listen, hang on in there. Because you too will have the opportunity to present at Hampden. But no, great experience, and very grateful to Graham and Keith for getting in touch and letting me do it. Well, very slick operation, and because they're so good at it, and they were saying they've done stadium announcing at rugby and netball and things like that, so they've taken wee elements from all the things that they've done and brought it into football. So it was an absolute doddle, but it was a doddle because they're so good at what they do. So brilliant experience. But listen, enough about the experience of talking about the football. Let's talk about watching the football. How's that for a segue? We'll start in the Championship and we'll focus on the Glasgow derby between Partick Thistle and Queen's Park. And I think this is perhaps one of the more one-sided encounters we're likely to see this season, with Thistle running out 5-0 winners. 5 goals, 5 different scorers. Paddy Redding, Ben Stanway, Logan Chalmers, Solana Litsosa and Luke Macbeth. Partick Thistle bounced back straight away from last week's defeat to Raith Rovers. They're in second place with 24 points, still hot on the heels of St Johnstone. Queen's Park in 9th place with 10 points. Shaughan, give me your thoughts on Partick Thistle 5, Queen's Park 0.
Yeah, I was interested to see how Thistle bounced back, because I'd watched them the week before at Stars Park. It was... I didn't think Thistle were necessarily bad, but I thought they were flat. So I was interested to see how they bounce back. Bear in mind, that was their first defeat since, in fact, the opening day of the season against St Johnstone, when they got walloped 5-1. And as much as I kind of before the game, I thought, right, Queen's Park maybe feels like that's a decent opponent, especially at home at Firhill. Then I saw that Josh Fowler was back in the team, and Queen's Park they'd kind of got a couple of 0-0 draws. I know that doesn't sound overly positive, but bear in mind that second one against Ayr United, they only had 10 men for 80 minutes. So I did wonder if Queen's Park could frustrate them or kind of derail them again. Absolutely not the case whatsoever. And I appreciate that they had the injury in the first half to Charlie Fox that certainly looked and sounded like it was a really horrible injury. And I've no doubt that would have an impact on like colleagues and ultimately friends, and hopefully can recover fully as quickly as possible. But you're right in what you said. It was very much one way, and it was 5-0. Like the highlights are brief in terms of Queen's Park. It was like 6 or 7 minutes, but there was still a few saves in there from Callum Ferry, so that felt very representative. If not, maybe Thistle could have won by more.
It was a result I expected, maybe not by that scoreline, but I didn't appreciate just how one-sided the encounters have been recently. I'd read that it's 15, Partick Thistle are 15 matches unbeaten in 90 minutes. And you've got to quantify that by saying that QP knocked Thistle out the Scottish Cup last season, albeit via penalties. But other than that, it's very one-sided. Thistle are by far and away the better side in this match. And I think that you lose 2 goals from... I'd say that the first 2 goals from Paddy Redding and then from Ben Stanway, Thistle didn't necessarily have to work hard for them. I wouldn't say there's a degree of fortune, maybe a degree of fortune with the first one, but they're two shots that are hit from about 25 yards each. Very, very accurate. And I think those are the kind of goals that just like knock the stuffing out of you. And at that point as well, you mentioned Charlie Fox out with a very serious injury. It sounded like I think it's a dislocated kneecap that he's got. And I think from what I've read, it took him a long time before an ambulance was able to pick him up.
9 or 10 hours, I think, yeah.
Which is, I mean, there was Sean Crichton in his post-match interview saying that Charlie's still with us. That would have been, I imagine, about 5:30, maybe a wee bit earlier than that. I think it was well into the evening when he was picked up. So terrible stuff, and hopefully that sort of thing doesn't happen again, and that delay doesn't have a big impact on Fox, and he can recover quickly because he's an important player for Queen's Park. And on top of that, he's not long back after being out with a serious injury for a long time, so that will knock the team's confidence. But then after that, I think they were torn apart. The Chalmers' goal and Litsosa's goal, basically carbon copies of one another, but just coming down different flanks. Cut open there. And then I think the second half was very one-way traffic. Crichton did say there was a brief period, I think at 2-0, Tyrese McDonald had 2 shots from distance, one that forced a really good save from Josh Clark, the other one that hit the bar. But other than that, and maybe a chance right at the very start where I think it was a really good work from Fowler, put I think it was Ross McLean, young boy, in for a chance, and Clark did well to smother it. Outside of that, looked pretty easy going for Thistle.
And I think that's probably where the biggest issue is for Queen's Park, because anytime I read or hear compliments about them from the fans, is about like their effort, or the fact they give 100%, or the fact they leave everything on the park. It's already, it feels a bit cliched, but I suppose in terms of what Queen's Park fans have maybe had to put up with at times over the last 2 or 3 seasons, I understand where they're coming from. However, if that's your biggest positive in terms of whether it's throwing yourselves in front of shots, so I suppose, for example, the Ayr United game the week before, down to 10 men after 10 minutes, faced 25 shots from Ayr United. However, Ayr United couldn't get that goal. So I suppose there was always, for that full kind of 90 minutes, there was very much something to hold on to. So players were maybe more willing to throw themselves in front of something or to give it their all. I don't know. But if that's your biggest positive, if you're a goal down after 15 minutes, you're 2 down after at the interval, one of your more experienced players has now went off with a horrible injury. Like, in terms of throwing yourselves in front of shots, or maybe doing the same thing that you were doing the week before against United, it probably becomes a wee bit less likely. So when I realised that maybe, not that they capitulated in the second half, but I wasn't surprised it became, if anything, more of a kind of one-way traffic in the second half, I suppose.
So, sorry, my pop guard just fell off my microphone there. You know something, I'm not going to bother to reattach that, because that's just dead air. You know what I'm just going to do? I'm just going to hold it at a safe distance from
like
the
a
microphone.
Like a big giant lollipop.
Like a big lollipop. I kind of look like, what is it? It's a sort of Dr. Zeus thing, isn't it? The thing with the big moustache, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a child. I don't read that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the big issue you've summed up there where Queen's Park's, it's their effort and endeavour that's getting praised, because certainly not their defending. Not in this encounter anyway. I think you're right in what you say about that performance against United, when it's pretty much you've got to concentrate for 80 minutes to make up for Fieldson's sending off. But this one here, the big issue, they don't score goals. 1 goal in the last 6 games. And that was against Arbroath when you were 3 goals down already. And it took them 3 goals before they actually were able to get the ball over the line from Tim Scott. They could have scored here. You know, that chance, McLean could have opened the scoring when Fowler put him through. McDonald could have easily scored his chances, but he didn't. And so that weight goes on. And I think Fowler was back into the team. The impression that I got was that he might have been put back into the team quicker than anyone would have liked, just to make up for the shortfall in attacking options. And Crichton had to take him off with, I think, about 5-10 minutes to go, because he was just burst. So at least I suppose it's the old cliche, at least he's got minutes in the legs for this one going forward. But yeah, there's just a lot of issues. But Crichton, just on that, Crichton said after this game, it's a game we've got to put in the bin. It's the second time I've heard him say that this season. He said it after the Arbroath game when they lost 4-1 there. But that's so, I don't know how many games you've got to put in the bin.
Yeah, aye. And I think that's it. I think they have. I was going to say they have a talented starting 11. I don't think it's untalented, but it is precocious, I suppose. They are light on experience, and the fact that they're now going to be without Charlie Fox for what you would presume is a prolonged spell, is far from ideal. I do think the only thing that you could cling to in terms of a positive, because it's not just like for those games that they haven't managed to score, a number of them Fowler's been missing, and I think there was probably like the best move that they created in the game. You've already described it actually, but it wasn't just that Fowler was on the end of it. It was Fowler created it, and I do think that he gives them so much more than just scoring goals. He drags them up the park. He's just he's a quality player, and like his decision making is quite good. So he picks up the ball middle of the park, kind of goes wide left, and then just plays a really, really clever ball through to McLean, and it does take a good save from Josh Clark to deny him, which would have been the opening goal. So if he, because it's Wraith Rovers up next for Queen's Park, the fact that Fowler did get 80 minutes or 85 minutes, whatever it was, that will do them the world of good. It's whether now the blow at the other end of the park kind of maybe puts another hole under the waterline for them.
Yeah, you're right. Just in terms of that was a moment of genuine quality from Queen's Park. They're just Fowler, what I've seen from him, just been excellent so far this season. Comfortably Queen's Park's best player so far this campaign, and that's everything you want from a striker. You know, when you're up front there yourself, it's a hard shift from the people behind you. Sometimes if stuff isn't going to fall your way, you've got to make it happen. Yeah. And just the play there down wide there, the hold up play, waiting for McLean's run, the ball to slip him through, just everything executed perfectly. Just unfortunately it was Josh Clark read the situation very well and was out to it quickly and was able to block. So difficult times ahead for Queen's Park. But we're spending a lot of time talking about the team that were gubbed 5-0. What about the team that won 5-0? This looked like another excellent performance from Thistle. You described last week as flat. This looked fizzy, if anything. This looked like somebody's just choked up a big bottle of orangeade and sprayed it everywhere.
It just looks like they are. So I've watched them twice this season against Wraith. A couple of weeks ago, they weren't up to much. I thought the first game at Firhill, they were really good. Probably the most I've enjoyed the game this season, albeit Rovers lost 3-2. Just a really good game. But it feels like that. Like Mark Wilson and Alex Ray have come in there, and like I suppose we spoke about issues they might have at the start of the season. So things like, didn't have, like in the past, we've talked about how Partick Thistle have been good in terms of they've had attacking fullbacks, whether it was Harry Milne or Jack McMillan on the other side, or both at points. So how do you cope with that? What you do is you come up with a plan, you come up with a good set of tactics for the players that you have available. And it kind of feels like he has a back four that are quite capable and quite comfortable with defending. Then shove in, I'm going to mispronounce his name, is it Ocean or Ocean Smith?
No, Ocean Smith.
Just to protect that back four. And then you have 5 players in front of them that are kind of let off the leash. And it just feels like they can defend well. Like, they don't have the greatest defensive record, albeit 5 of the goals they conceded came in that first game against St Johnstone. So actually defensively they've probably been okay since, but they can absolutely hurt teams. And it just feels like I think if you're a Partick Thistle fan and you're turning up on a Saturday, more often than not, you're probably going to get probably a winning game to watch, but it's actually quite an entertaining one as well. There is an argument that I'm a wee bit jealous of Partick Thistle this season. I just think they're good to watch. I quite like it.
Yeah, we spoke about them when I'd been to see the midweek game against Ayr United. I think we end up talking about or you just had to sit and listen to me talk about that match more than anything. But I think fun is how I would describe that performance. And again, what you said there, I completely agree with it. It's almost like a 5-5 with the team there. You've got 5 defensive-minded players on the pitch. The fullbacks they're not really getting up and attacking, certainly not to the same extent that Harry Milne or Jack McMillan were. But so if you've got them just all basically sitting on the halfway line, it allows the team to push up. And you're right, those attackers with Tony Watt isn't necessarily an orthodox forward. He wants to come deep and link into play. And there's guys that, like Sosa, will push beyond them. Logan Chalmers is someone that can push beyond them. You've got Ben Stanley, who, there's a big mistake that Queen's Park made. If Stanley drops his shoulder and comes in onto his right foot, he's going to have a shot. He did it against Ayr United, albeit that was bad defending there. I remember there's a game, I think it was on the television. I think we covered it actually in a podcast last season against Hamilton Academical. He did the exact same thing, came in from the left. He did it here. He came in from the left onto his right foot and shot. Said it before, I'll say it again. Sosa, my favourite player in Scottish football outside of Stennismuir. The guy is an absolute joy to watch. I actually went back and watched the interview that he gave Partick Thistle's social media channel when he first signed for the club. I was beaming just how enthusiastic he came across. And again, I'm repeating the points I'm making, but he plays football like he was interviewed there. He talked about what he said, like, describe yourself as a player, and he was like athletic, energetic, aggressive and passionate, and it's like that's you're embodying what Partick Thistle are doing. And the wee give and go that he made there to set up Chalmers' goal, very nice. And then for the Chalmers just to return the favour, like basically Chalmers lifting a silver salver with a ball on it for Sosa to score. They do have a lot of brio at the moment, and it's incredible to think that they're probably better than they were last season. I don't think we would have said that at the start of this campaign, and Wilson is cooking up something very nicely here. It was only a very short interview on the YouTube channel, but I suppose that's to encourage you to subscribe to the Jag Zone, Partick Thistle's in-house media centre. But there was a 10-minute interview. I think it was a sort of a independent sports channel had recorded this post-match interview. I thought, had they lost 5-0, I'd be more inclined to listen to a 10-minute post-match interview. Not that interested when you've won and you're just going to gush about how great you are. But he said that he was delighted, especially to bounce back from the defeat to Wraith Rovers at the weekend. And that's exactly what he got there. A very ebullient performance.
So Andy Harrow took a load of students to the game on a kind of media pass, essentially. So they had access to the kind of post-match stuff. And what have you. So he said he was like really impressed by him, and he also did add the caveat that it's probably a wee bit easier to be impressive after a game if you've won 5-0. Basically, he just came across really well, like happy to speak about like any aspect of the game. And bear in mind, Andy has obviously like kind of done a lot of post-match stuff in terms of what he did at Wraith Rovers, what he's done as a kind of freelance journalist and stuff. But no, he said he was impressed by him. But kind of on that point, I do think it's quite interesting, and it's maybe something that we laughed at, or maybe people speculated on, I suppose, in the summer. But I remember when was it the chairman, whatever his official title was, and it was when Brian Graham left, and he spoke about the fact that Brian Graham was like the alpha or something. And Mark Wilson was a bit more cerebral, I think was the term he used. But I do think it's really interesting that Partick Thistle appeared to be a bit better under Mark Wilson and Alex Ray than they did under Brian Graham and Mark Wilson. So maybe there is, like, I wasn't overly convinced at bringing in Alex Ray, never mind Mark Wilson, but it seems to be that everything is working out, for whatever reason, it just seems to be working out well for them.
I suppose the big difference is just with that forward line, not to take anything away from Graham, because Graham's a superb player and he's continued to do well at Falkirk in the Premiership, so fair play to him. But just with his advancing years and just someone who knows what he needs to do to get through games and how to influence games, but you'd very rarely move beyond the posts. It would basically, like, the ball played into him, control it, hold it up, knock it out wide, and then get into the box to finish. That's what Brian Graham's good at. But now they're just a wee bit more fluid. There's a wee bit more to them. I think they're a wee bit more difficult to try and pin down. And because of that fluidity, and there's such effervescence and such energy in that team, I think teams are finding them really difficult to play against.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that if you've got someone who is a big battering ram, and I know that, and I want to caveat it by saying Brian Graham there's a lot more to him than that, but if you want to just take him down to basically break him down to his atomic level, a big laddie up front that can play with his back to goal, you kind of know what you're doing with that. But if you've got someone like Tony Watt, who maybe a bit more flaky, but certainly a bit more facets to his game. I think Tony Watt's perhaps more difficult to try and pin down than Brian Graham is. And I think that because with Tony Watt dropping deep and people going beyond him, I think that's more difficult for teams to try and defend.
Yeah, I think you're right. See, just in terms of on the goals, just a couple of things I wanted to point out that made me smile. See the first goal. See the fact that it came from what appeared to be a kind of training ground free kick routine that didn't go well at all.
Yes.
And then there's just this huge kind of grumbling starts to emanate from the stands, and then Paddy Redden just absolutely leathers it for about 25 yards. Brilliant.
I wouldn't say leather. I'd say sweep is more the adjective I'd use to describe it. Although the bigger part of the verbs that's a doing word. He sweeps the ball rather than leathers it. But nevertheless, it's a very nice goal. Very nice goal.
The second one from a slightly different perspective, because I don't know who it is that says it, but see when you watch the highlights, see when Stanway kind of sets himself and he's just about to kind of let fly, and obviously it curls into the keeper's top left-hand corner. Somebody in the stands goes, "Oh no," but I don't know who it is that goes, "Oh no." I don't know if it's a Partick Thistle fan who doesn't trust Stanway, or if it's a Queen's Park fan who very much does realise what is about to happen. Not entirely sure, but very funny. Oh no! And then seconds later, it's in the back of the net.
It sounded to me like Lord Willie Hawley's voice that was just seeing Stanway line up there. Oh no!
He's just been told he's lost another wall.
At the very same time, Stanway winds up to put the ball in the back of the net. It's like George Bush being told about the World Trade Centre. Sir, a second memorial wall has gone missing. Well, up next, Shaughan, on Friday night, we're going to be treated to Airdrieonians versus Thistle on the BBC Scotland channel.
I'd be surprised if Partick Thistle don't win this one. Maybe not quite as convincingly, but I've not been impressed by Airdrie at all this season. So yes, Partick Thistle away win.
Yeah, I think Airdrie, watched the highlights of their game against St Johnstone, and a decent effort, but St Johnstone just far better than them. Adama Sidibe, his goals were very well taken in that one. And you've touched on it already, Shaughan, but Queen's Park versus Raith Rovers at Lesser Hampden. First of all, have you got a ticket for the game?
Yes, so I've managed to source a ticket from the ballot. I should, excuse me, I should feel like Charlie Bucket. Instead, I feel like Augustus Gloop after he's been sucked into that pipe. Is just utterly miserable that I do have a ticket for this one. Whoever scores first will win this game. I don't think it'll be a classic. I would not be surprised if Queen's Park get their first home win in umpteen months.
It's coming up for a year, isn't it, since they last won at home?
I'll try and be positive and say 1-0 Wraith, but that'll be grim.
If you had to die like one of the 4 children in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, none of them died actually, but whose fate would you most like to have mimic?
I think what was the name of the girl that ended up?
Violet Beauregard. I
think they suggested they could kind of pump that juice out of her.
All right.
So maybe that fate.
I'd like to go like Mike TV. I'd like to be shrunk down, and all the mischief that I could play as a little man. I think I'd get a kick out of that.
But eventually somebody would stand on you.
Well, not if I stayed out their way.
It sounds stressful.
Yeah, it does. It'd probably be fun for about half an hour or so, and then just when you realise that I remember what was the movie? Is it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? There's a scorpion in that movie. They climb on the back of an ant and it fights a scorpion. I'm sorry, but ants and scorpions are very, very different sizes. I don't know how that happened. They slept in a Lego brick, I remember.
I suppose, excuse me, I suppose with Augustus Gloop, he became quite slim.
Yes.
They basically went from being like overweight to looking like Nicholas Lyndhurst.
But then they made him very, very tall at the same time. Maybe he really got into basketball. Maybe that's what happened at the end. Augustus Gloop joined the NBA.
So that's the one that ultimately you want to go for.
I suppose, though, the pain that Augustus Gloop was in when he got stuck in that pipe, I mean, that's an image I'll never forget from the movie. The look of that fat German boy's face, so all that pressure. He looked like a Francis Bacon painting, actually.
Can't there be too many Germans in the NBA? A good opportunity for him.
Yeah, good opportunity to be a real trailblazer. They call him Gloop the Hoop or something like that. One more thing, Shaughan, before we move away from the championship, and I've actually kind of sticking with Partick Thistle as well, but did you see the video of Alex Samuel and his wife playing the guitar and singing in the changing rooms at Firhill?
I did not know.
Go and see if you can check it out. I mean, I say he's playing the guitar. Basically, he's locked his hands into one chord and she just sings over the top of it. But it's nice. She's a good chanter.
Is it to do with religion? Because I know he's quite a religious man. Is it anything to do with that?
I don't know. I was looking out for the lyrics. I was trying to listen to the lyrics, but they were all more. I think it was all more about spirituality without veering into religion. But I don't know. I could be wrong with that.
Okay, I mean, still sounds very interesting. I will very much source that out.
It's good. I mean, like I imagine it must be actually class to go round to their house. As you say, bring the bass. Could come down, the three of us all have a jam together.
I've honest, I wouldn't like to go to somebody's house and then they just bring out a guitar. I probably just want to, I don't know, watch the telly or blether.
Quite like the idea of going into his house, taking off your jacket and handing it to him. He's actually got his guitar in one hand ready to go.
So your jacket falls to the floor?
Yes, that's because he's got the guitar in his hand. But listen, enough about Alex Samuel, his wife, and pop music. We will go into League One, and our featured matches: Alloa Athletic 3, Kelty Hearts 0. Luke Rankin put the Wasps ahead early on. Callum Adamson doubled their lead shortly afterwards, and David Devine added the third just after the hour mark. Alloa on a wee bit of a roll at the moment, moved into third place with 20 points. But Kelty, oh my goodness, they're in big bother. They've taken just 4 points from their last 10 matches. They're in ninth place with a total of 7. Not looking good, Shaughan, but give me your thoughts on Alloa Athletic 3, Kelty Hearts 0.
Yeah, this might be the most impressive Alloa have been this season. I think. How would you describe Alloa up until this point? Maybe how we used to describe Montrose, I suppose, in seasons gone by, where they will always be there or thereabouts in terms of the championship playoff places. But I always just feel like they're maybe one or two pieces away from being able to get promotion, I suppose. But they, as much as they might finish 4th, 5th, 6th, I think fans have always felt that they don't necessarily impress. Like, you turn up on a Saturday, it might be quite a dull experience, no matter what the result is. However, I don't think that was the case on Saturday. It was 3-0, could have been considerably more. And I appreciate they were coming up against a poor looking Kelty side. But I think on the flip side, the biggest concern about Kelty isn't just the fact that it lost 3-0. I mean, their form this season has been really poor. But I think during this campaign so far, we said, right, well, they've got players missing, they've got players that will come back from injury, and that might make a difference. It's starting to feel like now that those players are now starting to be available, and nothing really is improving for Kelty. So a very concerning weekend for Kelty Hearts and Tamaware.
Yeah, listen, we'll get Alloa out of the way first, because they're by far and away the least interesting of the two teams to talk about. But you know something, I think you're onto something there. I think that what Alloa have had in maybe the last couple of seasons, they have got the spine of a good side. You know, they've got a strong defence, decent fullbacks, and like Scott Taggart. The midfield three, very complimentary about them. And you've got an array of attackers. Maybe not they've all got their flaws, but they're decent enough. But I think between the three of them, Rankin, Donnelly and Salmon, you're probably on course to get about 15 goals a season for them, and hope the goals are picked up elsewhere. And that elsewhere comes from signing young loan players in for your attacking positions. We mention it a lot of the time when we talk about Alloa, but they had big success when they had like Taylor Stephen and Bobby Wales and Ethan Sutherland playing up front for them that season. And I think last season the big criticism was that the loan players that came in never really improved them. Were actually perhaps a bit of a weaker proposition than those guys. This season, however, I think a lot of the young guys they've got on loan, particularly from Rangers, I think this co-op agreement's actually worked out quite well for them, because like Adamson and Burnside, they look really good. I mean, like the goal there that Adamson scored, very well taken. I think it was Burnside that set up, that had the shot that led. It was Adamson that had the shot that led to the
That was
opening goal.
so that was the first goal. So that was the first goal. So yeah, so Adamson picked up the middle
and
of the
then
park.
Burnside sets up the one for Devine. So you've got these young guys that are contributing. They've got a bit of effervescence about them. I saw them last week. It was 0-0 draw with Stennismuir. Stefan Skugel was sent off with about half an hour left to go. Burnside came on and made a big difference. You actually didn't notice they were playing with a man down because he had such a good positive performance. The ball was getting played up to him and it was sticking. Up the top was sticking a lot, and that allowed Alloa to climb up the park. So I think these young guys that they've got in from Rangers, this is an example of a cooperation agreement that seems to be working. So I think Alloa got a better end of the deal than Raith Rovers did anyway.
Quite possibly. But it's interesting as well because like Stefan Skugel did he get sent off the week before?
2 yellows against Stenny.
Yeah, so he was missing, and I think on any other given day, you kind of take that base fact. Stefan Skugel was missing for Alloa. You're like, oh, they might struggle today. But then Andy Graham actually said that afterwards, the fact that Callum Adamson came in, Callum Addison came in and kind of made the place his own. Made that space his own, and now maybe there's a wee bit of pressure on Skugel come back and maybe he won't just immediately come back into the team. But even just watching the highlights, it was things that you don't always expect to see in League One football in terms of back heels and kind of flicks and tricks, and Andy Graham talked about like telling them to kind of go out and express themselves, and I kind of felt like they did manage to do that over the piece. And again, I know it's not necessarily easy to do that at 2-0. It becomes a wee bit easier at 3-0. But regardless, again, it's from an Alloa perspective, it just looked like a really, really enjoyable afternoon.
You're right, and in Andy Graham's post-match interview, he was talking a lot about the attacking unit of the team, but he's very keen to stress just how good they are defensively. I mean, they've conceded 1 goal in the last 4, and that came from the penalty spot as well. Going back to that game against Stennismuir, they're hard to break down. I think there was only one moment in that match Stennismuir really got in behind them, and when they did, that big freak Liam McFarlane came out and smothered the ball out at Matty Aitken's feet. Honestly, I've had it up to here with Liam McFarlane this season. But having a strong defence, it just allows, similar to what we're talking about with Partick Thistle, if you've got a strong defence and good attackers, the attackers can just really focus on what they're good at doing. That's getting on the ball and making things happen without having to worry too much about going the other way. And it was certainly what we saw in this match here. Yes, Kelty Hearts are a very, very limited opposition, but Alloa, you can only beat what's in front of you. And Alloa certainly did that. I mean, Graham said that the last half hour was the most enjoyment he's had watching his team this season. I think just very happy that they were able to see out the match, see it out with a bit of style. If Connor Salmon had his shooting boots, could have extended the lead by another couple of goals. And I think it's just they're on a bit, like I said at the start, they're on a bit of a roll at the moment. If they can keep this going, then I think there's 2 playoff spots that are up for grabs there. No reason to say why they can't get one of them.
Why? I suppose why just 2? Who do you think is the second one?
I was actually thinking as soon as I said that, I was thinking
maybe
hang on a
3.
second, who are those? Because you would say Hamilton Accies, maybe not now after that points deduction. You'd say Queen of the South. The only thing you can say about them is just how inconsistent they are. I think the only one that's guaranteed is probably Inverness Caledonian Thistle. So maybe there's 3 spots that are up for grabs in that top 4.
That was funny. I was looking at a table and I initially thought the same as you. I was like, right, there's definitely a possibility here for 2 part-time teams to finish in that top 4. Like, right, well, Stenny's doing really well, Alloa's doing really well at this moment in time. Who else would be a challenger? And then I'm like, well, actually, there might be room for 3 part-time teams to finish in the top 4 this season. I wouldn't be surprised at all, based on Queen of South struggles on the park, Hamilton struggles off the park. So I think Alloa have an eye. It hasn't been plain sailing by any stretch of imagination, and fans have kind of blown hot and cold on Andy Graham at times.
Yeah.
But they've put themselves in a great position with whatever it is, a third of the season going.
No, great to see. I'm a big fan of Andy Graham, so it's good to see his team doing well. But Shaughan, you mentioned there are those 3 spots up for grabs and any part-time team could take them. Tell you one part-time team that's not going to take one of those promotion playoff spots, and that's Kelty Hearts. My goodness, this was an abysmal performance. And I think Tam O'Ware, going by his post-match interview, miserable, completely aghast at what he saw from this. And they are in big bother, as we mentioned, 4 points out of possible 30 and really going nowhere fast. And probably a chance that Cove Rangers are eventually going to overtake them and move into 9th place.
Yeah, actually, just to start on Tam O'Ware's comments, because there's a couple of things that, I mean, it's not a long interview by any stretch of imagination, but he's very much down in the dumps when he's been interviewed. But he talks about that he didn't see this coming. Now, bear in mind, we've only won 2 games this season, one in August and one in September. So that was the last time they won a game. That might have been against Cove. They've lost 9 games this season now, so I'm surprised he didn't see it coming. But he does, to be fair, he did expand on this. It's always something that it's one of those things I'm never overly keen on when managers, and I'm not saying he's using it as an excuse, but he was saying, one of the reasons he didn't see it coming was because of how they train on a Tuesday and a Thursday. He was saying, at training, they'll run through brick walls for each other. They've got each other's back, but on a Saturday, he's not really seen that. But I never really think that's an acceptable thing to say after you've just been pummeled on a Saturday. Like, maybe part of the reason they look okay on a Tuesday and a Thursday is because they're playing each other. Like, you're not coming up against a half decent opponent. So I felt he was struggling to, I suppose, articulate what the problem was. He did say that there will be changes from here on in, but I'd like how do you do that? You've only got them for two nights a week for whatever it is, 2 hours in. Like, he doesn't have a huge squad, so fair play. I mean, if he can make huge changes in terms of training and performances and lineups, fine. But I thought it was probably something that was a wee bit easier to say than maybe actually implement.
Yeah, it's like your mum threatening to take away your PlayStation because you've been badly behaved. It's like, listen, that's not going to happen. Let's just get that out of the picture just now. That's not going to happen. You can ground me so I can stay in and play more PlayStation. The PlayStation isn't going anywhere. I suppose the big change that he said everything has going to change, that maybe took place the day before the match with Michael Tidser returned to the club. I thought it was quite telling. So, but just for those who don't know, Michael Tidser, the former player manager, whose Kelty Hearts team were actually pretty good fun to watch. All seemed to go downhill for both Kelty actually and Tidser when he agreed to join Dunfermline Athletic. I'm sure at one point Kelty looked as though they could challenge to get into the promotion playoffs last season, and it was pretty much derailed when Tidser left and Charlie Mulgrew came in, and then O'Ware saw him out for the rest of the season. Tidser coming in, O'Ware was very full of praise for him. You know, he said he's known him since he was a teenager. He's known him for a number of years. He says he's more like a brother than anything else. They see the game the same way, which obviously doesn't say much for Michael Payton, the assistant who just left. It was like, we see the game the same way. He wanted someone next to him that's got the same drive. Obviously, inference being Michael Payton doesn't have that same degree of drive and had to move on. But the difficulty for him is, like, Tidser was a very, very popular player manager at New Central Park. So if things aren't going well, you've got a ready-made replacement in the dugout to take over if things aren't going well. So that's probably, I don't know if that's something that O'Ware's worried about. I suppose in the meantime, it's just you've got a quality player in your ranks. If he's fit and available, Tidser would benefit most midfields in that division. So that would make a big impact. But it felt like when he was saying the team were bullied for 75 minutes, outfought, outran, played around them, conceded 3 soft goals, and just saying that there's a lack of ruthlessness there. And you just need to watch, particularly the first and second goals, the lack of ruthlessness, the lack of drive. I think if there's an example that sums up just where Kelty Hearts are at the moment, you just need to watch that first goal. Yeah. I think that's an example of where Kelty are at the moment.
Yeah, because it spoke as well about a kind of desire. They said certainly the first goal, I think he talked about the fact that they couldn't get a touch in. So the shot came in from Adamson from distance. I thought Corey Armour, I thought he could have caught it, but ultimately they kept it out, kind of didn't push it far enough. However, fell to Luke Rankin, and funnily enough, because like Tam O'Ware was playing, but was a lot kind of further out, and he kind of, I don't think for a minute he could have got back to make any difference whatsoever. He just kind of trot back, but then I think at that side it would have been
It's Lewis Carroll and Jack Bryden.
Jack Bryden would have been at that side, so either of them could get close to ranking who has an easier finish than they should be getting from that situation, I suppose.
That's the thing. I was watching the highlights and don't really want to dig out Carroll. Carroll was poor for the second goal as well because he gets caught underneath the ball as it goes to Adamson, and it goes over his head and Adamson's able to control it and finish. But it's just, he's tracking back with his arm in there looking for an offside that's it's never going to come, and you're just jogging back. Bryden's slow off the mark as well. The only player out of the three that's actually got any determination about him was Luke Rankin. And Luke Rankin was able to, that goal came because Rankin, and I hate sounding like it sounds like your dad, Luke Rankin wanted it more than them. He knew that if he got into position, the fact he's able to have a lot more time in the ball than he thought, it's because those two players just aren't trying as hard. I can maybe a bit of sympathy for Bryden because you're thinking, well, the goalkeeper's got that covered. I need to go back and defend the line. So if the shot does get past the goalkeeper, I can get something on it. And he did. He helped it and get hit the back of the net. But it's just that a bit of sympathy for Carroll because he's a young boy and that was a bad day for him so he can learn. But Bryden's an inexperienced player. You'd expect better from him. But I think it's just lack of ruthlessness that O'Ware spoke about there.
I don't know if you noticed it as well, and not that it was mentioned by Tam O'Ware, but there was a couple of incidents. I'm not even entirely sure if either of them led to goals. There was definitely a moment in the second half where Corey Armour's handling wasn't very good. I think it was a shot that was straight at him, possibly from an angle that I think it kind of squirmed away from him and went for a corner. But Lewis Moore had a bit of a temper tantrum. And there was a couple of moments where Moore was very much kind of like throwing his arms up and kind of, it looked like he was kind of falling out with people at that moment in time. And maybe given, and bear in mind Armour, and I'm not saying Armour had a good game, he had some good saves, but he could have done better. He'd sent at least one of the goals. But I think, bear in mind, Moore is 27, presumably one of the more experienced players in that team. Not entirely sure that, given a 19-year-old who, especially when you're a goalkeeper and you make a mistake, a mistake is amplified, I suppose, than if a left winger makes a mistake. So I did wonder about the body language, and maybe just to do with Lewis Moore. I don't know, but I worry about the team in general.
There was a moment, I think it was when the concession of the first goal, actually, there was a player, I couldn't quite make out who it is, but it's somebody, I'm going to assume it's a more attack-minded player who's come into the box. When the ball hits the back of the net, it just sort of jumped up and throws his arms around. I couldn't quite see who it was.
Might be Moore.
It might be Moore if we're using what you've just said there, but it just feels like with Kelty, we've said it before, this is like the least star-studded version the team have had since they've come into the SPFL. They just seem like really soft and really easy to play against. Funnily, I was looking at what was I doing? It was stuff for a view for the terrace. We had to pick interesting games from it was the episode you were on. Had to look at it would have been, I was talking about the third round, interesting fixtures from that.
Yes.
And I was looking at the team because Kelty have drawn Brecon in the Scottish Cup third round, and the last time those two sides met was in the League 2 playoffs back in May 2021 when Kelty relegated Brecon, sent them to the Highland League. And that team that Kelty had that beat them, light years ahead, guys like Darren Jameson in goals, Dylan Easton, Dougie Hill, guys like that. There was more players I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but all guys who would come in and walk into this current Kelty side. And I suppose the difficulty is just when you've got a lot of young players that are all learning their trade at the same time. I mean, there's the fullback. Sorry, certainly there's Lewis Carroll's young boy. Corey Armour's a young boy. And Rico Dayak's still learning his trade. Still probably only got I don't know how many games he's got in this belt. Maybe 30, 40 games. I'm going to imagine most of them are sub-appearances as well. So he's still learning what it takes to be a striker.
I think what you maybe need, so you're right, but I think what they maybe need is, though, if you go through that team now, the fact that certainly the majority of them's back. So Tam O'Ware's there, Jack Bryden, Brodie Patterson, Innes Murray, Craig Clay, Alex Ferguson's had a few seasons now, Lewis Moore. So there's experience there. So I suppose you're right in terms of you want to nurture the young players. You don't want to kind of knock their confidence, but maybe it is Tam O'Ware getting the most out of also that experienced clutch of players that they have, because it feels like it's not as if they're without quality. It's not as if they're without experience, but certainly it feels like nothing is working at all. And I think previously, when we spoke about Kelty, like I remember speaking about them when they played against East Fife, and I felt like they were shooting themselves in the foot in terms of how they wanted to play football, building out for the back, and it was the working.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like that was necessarily the case against Alloa, certainly in terms of how the highlights looked. But that's not necessarily a good thing. So maybe so if they're no longer shooting themselves in the foot, they're just, I suppose, essentially being dominated by the opponent. So if anything, that's worse. It just feels like I'll be interested to see what happens, kind of management wise. Like we've seen managers become assistant managers, but quite unusual to see an assistant manager get brought in who is a previous successful and popular manager at that club under I suppose an underperforming manager. So it almost feels like I wouldn't be surprised if they swapped roles or Tidser just became the manager. I don't know. It's a weird situation.
Yeah, I actually thought that might be the case as well, that there might come the time where I don't know what Tidser's intentions are to still play. I'm not sure how often he played for Montrose. I think it was only a handful of times. I don't think he's quite fit enough to contribute at the moment. Wasn't on the bench for Kelty at the weekend.
He can't play. He can't play until as a player, because the transfer window, he can't play until the window opens. So he can't play. He maybe can play, but he can't do it right now until January.
That's right. That's why there's a lot of boys going on loan. In fact, I'm sure Arbroath loaning out Rocco Hickey Fugacha. They've loaned him to Clydebank, and the only reason they can do that is because they are not in the SPFL. So maybe Michael Tidser should go and loan at Clydebank and just be on the phone the entire time when he's playing the Tamil Ware to give him hints and tips and advice. I'm trying to think of that. The number of assistant managers at SPFL clubs who previously managed them. I could think, Michael Tidser's one. The other two that came to mind, Brown Ferguson at Stennismuir, managed them, now the assistant manager to Gary Naismith. Stevie Aitken at Stranraer, managed them, now the assistant to his brother. Is there anyone else? I suppose there's, in a weird roundabout way, at Elgin City, Gavin Price was the manager and Jim Weir was his assistant, and now at Forfar, but that's not the same club. It's not the same club, so it doesn't it doesn't count. But if anyone can think of any more, then do let us know. Please, because Shaughan and I are going to have fucking sleepless nights about that one. Anyway, Shaughan, up next, Montrose versus Alloa Athletic.
I think Montrose are really, really struggling this season. I suspect that Alloa will have too much for them.
I think so as well. And then Stennismuir, Kelty Hearts.
You'll know better than me, but this feels like not a straightforward, but a comfortable home win.
Yeah, I think the last time they met one another, finished 1-0 to Stennismuir, but Stenny just couldn't get that second goal. And I think the longer the game went on, the more likely it looked that Kelty Hearts would come into it. So Stenny just not the most prolific side at the moment. I think it's about a goal a game they've got in the league. So this is a good opportunity to maybe put some goals on the board. Don't want to get too carried away, because I do think we're going to see some kind of reaction to this. You don't lose 2 games 3-0 on the bounce of the manager come out and say, yeah, everything's going to change after this. I mean, ideally for Kelty, things do change, but if they do, can you wait till next weekend for that to happen?
You missed what looked like good celebrations good last minute celebrations on Saturday.
Like, I was obviously keeping an eye on the score coming in. Proper punch the air. I think I was actually standing pitside watching St Mirren warm up when I saw the score coming. Yeah, that's the disappointment. So there's 2 games I've missed where Ross Taylor's actually scored late goals. One at Inverness Caledonian Thistle earlier on in the season, and one against Queens. It was brilliant. I mean, there's that. The supporters absolutely love this group of players, and quite right. And for Taylor to celebrate by coming over and with the fans is brilliant. There's a great bit, I don't know if you've seen in the highlights, you might not have noticed them, but from what I've heard from this game, Queen of the South were time wasting a lot in this game. You know, they got that goal, I think, midway through the second half, and throughout the entire second half, taking ages over goal kicks, taking ages to set themselves up, down, looking for treatment, all that sort of stuff. So when the goal went in, rather than go and celebrate with his teammates, Finlay Gray just made a beeline for Ross Stewart, laughed at him, and then sprinted to join everyone that was celebrating with the fans. And did you watch Ped Murphy's post-match interview?
No, I haven't, no.
He described it as a crappy little goal. So absolutely delighted with that. I think we recorded this and we're recording this podcast on Wednesday. We were making a view from the terrace earlier in the day. I did mention that. I'm not sure if that'll be taken forward into the finished show. Fingers crossed it does, because as I said on the show, not as spoilers, not even a spoiler view for the terrace for anyone thinking, oh, don't have to mention this, don't tell me. But you know something, I would have delighted, I said this, I would have been delighted with the 3 points. I beg your pardon, I would have been delighted with a draw prior to that, but watching that post-match interview, it feels like we got all three. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Now, Shaughan, our final match of this podcast takes place at Stair Park. Stranraer took on Forfar Athletic and they won 3-1. James Dolan opened the scoring from the penalty spot after 19 minutes, but Craig Slater cancelled out midway through the second half. But Ryan Edgar and Darren Lang netted late on to win it for the Blues. Stranraer have recorded back-to-back wins in the league for the first time this season. They're in 8th place with 11 points, and although Forfar are in 6th with 12 points, not in good form. Just one win in their last 8 matches. Shaughan, shoot thoughts on Stranraer 3, Forfar Athletic 1.
I suppose this is the third game now that we're talking about where it was maybe not straightforward, but certainly a very well deserved win for Stranraer on the day. It feels like that maybe some doubts that we've had when we discussed them in the summer about their recruitment, the concerns that we had about them scoring goals. Maybe some of them have been alleviated over the last few weeks. I think that's one defeat in 8, albeit you have to add the caveat that a couple of those games are like Challenge Cup games, and one was against Glenafton, I think, in the Scottish Cup.
That's
so
right.
Regardless, still really good form at this moment in time, so fair play. And in terms of Forfar, it just feels like we're always talking about the same things when it comes to Forfar, regardless of who the manager is, regardless of what season it is. How long has this gone on now? 3, maybe 4 seasons. They're just a thoroughly uninspiring lot. And again, as much as we thought they might be uninspiring but okay this season, I'm now starting to think they might be uninspiring but potentially in a bit of bother at the bottom of the table. I mean, I thought they looked dreadful on Saturday in Stranraer. Like 3-1 was very much reflective of the 90 minutes.
I think so. I think God, every time you finish a point, yeah, you're right, Shaughan. Because I can't think of anything interesting to say to try and disagree with you. But you're right. I think when you look at that division, just sort of pulling away from Forfar a second, a lot of teams out of form at the moment. You know, Dumbarton, Stirling Albion, and Forfar. I suppose Stranraer are only really getting their act together, and Athletic have been quite inconsistent. But those 3 sides, Forfar, Stirling, Dumbarton, not great at the moment. And I think that this match, going by the highlights, and once again, an absolutely world-class highlights package from the George Frank and the team at Stair Park. It's an actual pleasure to watch. There was one bit I noticed, just how good it is, and the attention to detail. There was a bit in the second half, right at the start, you know, they cut away to the sky with a bird flying around it, and then a graphic transition came up to go into the second half. The wee graphic in the lower third came up that said second half. And there's a wee light sweep that went across it. It's like, what? That's just, you don't need to do that. You don't need to put that in there. But it's just that attention to detail is what makes them so good. And I think for 17 minutes, I think you got a good feel for the match. You know, it was scrappy, it was hard fought, but well deserved for Forfar. You know, it could have gone, looked like it was heading for a draw, which might be a wee bit unfair. But then to get 2 goals right at the very end just swung the favour. And it was nice to hear Chris Aiken. I think the last time that we'd spoken about Stranraer, I can't quite remember who it was against, but he was really unhappy with his team, really unhappy with the direction they were going in. It was quite excoriating about them. This one here, he's delighted. I think he acknowledged not the best performance they're ever going to have, but a good team performance, and really pleased that Dom Plank and Darren Lang came off the bench and made a direct impact on the game, and that belief within the team's improved over the last 6 weeks. So it's good from Stranraer's perspective. Unfortunately, there was no post-match with Jim Weir. Couldn't see one on the social media or their YouTube channel, so we're not sure what his thoughts on this game are, but I imagine he'd be scunnered with what he saw from his players. I mean, there's a naivety from the likes of Matty Allen. Shouldn't be expecting that from him, and then just bad luck for that, for the goal that ultimately killed it. I mean, there's Jake Dolzanski get put in a clearing header which whacks off Darren Lang and just happens to land right at his feet for him to finish. That is just bad luck.
See for that. See what you mentioned. See the third goal that kind of whacks off Darren Lang. Is that what bursts his lip open? Because the ball comes...
Yeah, I was going to say it looked like he burst his lip, so I'm going to assume that's where it came from.
Because it's like a kind of Dom Plank shot that deflects off his face. And then, initially it looks like quite a cool, composed finish from Darren Lang as it kind of drops to his feet, kind of pokes it in off the post. Actually, the more you see it on kind of replay, the more he almost misses it. But fair play, he gets a goal.
Maybe it was on, Darren Lang went off to hospital with a concussion. We don't know. Dolzanski's clearing header, absolutely took the wind right out of his sails.
But I watched the celebrations a couple of times to see if maybe somebody jumps on him, or if he's in like a kind of huddle and somebody elbows him. I don't think that happens at all. So I actually think it's the ball coming off his lip that bursts it open. See, in terms of Chris Aitken, there's a couple of things I picked up on. Feel free to tell me that I'm reading too much into one of them. But the first one was, he said that 6 weeks ago, if Forfar had equalised, he didn't think that they would have come back to win the game. He thinks that potentially would have lost. And I totally understand where he's coming from. See, the other thing I picked up on, I thought was quite interesting. It was twice he referenced it, which I thought was quite unusual. He kept talking about my subs. He went, my subs made a real difference to the game. And he referenced that again. My subs had a real positive impact. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I'm not, because the thing is as well, I think managers maybe get a hard time if fans feel that they've made the incorrect substitutions. Like you say, Chris Aitken made terrible subs here. What's he up to? So as much as I picked up on it and thought it was unusual, then I thought, well, maybe it's quite right to describe it in that way. I just thought it was unusual.
I thought it's the measure where, because I'm sure there's been times early in the season, particularly it might have been when Edinburgh City reached 0 points, when they wiped out the 15-point deduction. I think it was, did it become, there was 5 points between them. Stranraer were on 5 points, Edinburgh City on 0. I think at that point people would have been right in his back there, thinking that how on earth have you let a team who have started the season on minus 15 points, that were given a points deduction after the first game of the season, how on earth have you managed to allow them to catch up on you? Since then, however, 3 wins on the bounce, which is in all competitions, including that win against Glenafton. That's really impressive, and I suppose that there's a degree of wanting people who watch it, the Stranraer fans watch it, think, I am a good manager. My decisions are directly affecting the game in a positive way. And it did. I mean, there's, like we just mentioned there, Plank and Lang. That sounds like a terrible BBC sort of duo. I don't know, like Undertakers or something, Plank and Lang from the early 2000s. Yeah, the Undertakers that solve crime. Yeah, there you go. Or Undertakers who kill people to get the bodies to keep their... God, maybe we should pitch this, actually. Plank and Lang, that's what we're going to call it. I'll play Dom Plank, you can play Darren Lang. The put upon Undertakers, their business is failing. They start killing people in the local community to drum up interest. And then there's a cop, Martin Bryan, who is... Oh, no, maybe we'll do an amalgamation. Brian Nelson and Lawrence Martin. There we go. Who are the sort of the duo that are onto us. There we go. Now we're cooking. Enjoyed Brian Martin's firstly his Spanish right at the start of the commentary. Now he actually googled it because I don't know Spanish at all, but basically it was less interesting than I thought it was. It was basically if you're watching this with a coffee with milk, Lorenzo, he said, then hopefully you enjoy it. But that was good enough. I thought his pronunciation was terrible, but that was good enough. It was, however, at the second goal, Ryan Edgar's goal. Ryan Edgar's goal. I said, China has Mount Edgar, but Stranraer has Ryan Edgar. Now, there has been a couple of comments online that they said they didn't like that. I thought it was very, very good. How could you not like that?
Listen, I don't know. I thought it was excellent.
It's the sort of thing, right? Had that come from anyone else, you think, come on, mate, you're trying to be hard. When Brian Martin said it's like, that's excellent. More of that, please, sir. It was disappointing. Like, Lawrence, of course, not able to make this game because he's in Madrid on his holidays. So Brian Martin was manning it with the Cammy. Oh, I've forgotten his second. That's really bad. I was going to call him Cammy Russell, but that's the Spartans attacker.
I was going to say Cammy Russell as well, but I don't think it is. But
regardless,
maybe
it's Cammy Russell. He is. He's good. He's good. Maybe that's his name. He's probably listening to this thinking, "No, guys, that's my name. It's Cammy Russell." Oh, if your name is Cammy Russell, we're sorry. If it's not Cammy Russell, we're also sorry. Aye, you're good, but like Lawrence Nelson. Lawrence is really the top of the mountain. Got to say, man, what was probably the best piece. There's two really good pieces of play in this match, and I think they both directly led to the opening goal and its equaliser. The Jordan Stewart's run down the left-hand side ended up being body checked by Matty Allen for the penalty. So that was a really nice bit of play. Really positive run there. Although naivety from Matty Allen, you shouldn't be. You're one of the guys we look to. You've played a lot of football. You shouldn't be doing that.
It's funny. I often think when there is a kind of coming together, I kind of have a lot of sympathy for the defender in a lot of instances because it's like, well, where can you go? However, I don't think that was the case there. I think he had enough time to react and essentially not bang into him, and especially when the ball was running out of play, there didn't have to be that coming together. So I thought the penalty was absolutely fine.
Yeah, and on top of that, look him up once we finish. But Matty Allen looks like a video game YouTuber called Pro Jared.
I'll check that.
Yeah, and I thought the equaliser was really nice as well. A nice wee exchange of passes between Craig Slater and Martin Rennie gave Slater a pretty easy finish. Yeah,
Slater, although Slater was involved beforehand, he kind of came for deep as well. You're right, it was a well-worked goal, but it was about the only thing of note that Forfar done all day. I thought it looked rubbish.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they went down to Stair Park last season. It was a game that myself and Craig Fowler went to, and they were goal down, and Mackenzie Lemon was sent off just before half time, and they ended up playing the entire second half with 10 men, but ended up winning the game. They somehow came back into it, and I think that was helped them on that. I think that was the first win of that great run over. Well, certainly up to toward. I mean, they were shite over the last 3 games. Really chucked it away and allowed Bonnyrigg to overtake them. But that was the first part of them being able to overtake the Rose to finish in 9th place. Really impressive there. A lot of spirit, a lot of resolve, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. And it just felt like for Forfar, when you have a scary season like that, where where you come close to finish bottom, a team like Forfar, I never think that Forfar are a middling League 2 side. For a lot of the time I've been watching football, they've been certainly an upward League 2 side, League 1 side. This feels just like a really weak version of them, and I don't know how you explain that or how you get to the bottom of that. So if we're not watching them on a regular basis, but I thought that over the summer there was work done to improve the defending. They conceded too many goals, and work done to improve the attacking options, or at least add a different element to the attacking options, but it doesn't appear to have paid any dividends.
I do wonder if in terms of recruitment, it feels like they've signed lots of strikers, but without necessarily a good idea of how to deploy them. I even think, I'm only basing this on the kind of website that I looked at the formation, but it looked like Jake Sutherland was wide and Scott Shepherd was up front along with Martin Rennie. Now, we kind of know that Scott Shepherd will give you effort, but he's probably not going to give you goals, whereas Sutherland might provide you with the opposite. So you almost feel
any effort. He doesn't try hard, but he scores loads of goals.
That's not right. Sorry, he will provide you. He will give you effort, but he's probably a better goal scorer than somebody who's full of daring do, I suppose. So maybe just switch them over. I mean, Jim Weir's obviously going to know better than me, but it just feels like there is something. Whether it's the recruitment or how he sets them up on a Saturday, I don't know. But again, it just feels like another. Goodness me, 4th, 5th season in a row where Forfar fans are quite rightly kind of up in arms.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, Shaughan. Just here's a wee factoid, right? Mark McCallum missed this game after experiencing a broken nose in training, according to Brian Martin before the match. The last time he missed a league game was on the 22nd of February 2022. It was a 2-0 loss to Stennismuir, right? Somebody called Lewis Sanderson took his place and conceded a very soft goal to Adam Corbett. Now, quiz question. There are 2 players from that Forfar team who are still at the club. Can you name them?
Stuart Morrison?
No. He might have been. He wasn't. He was two players from that Forfar squad that day that were still at the club. I think Morrison might have been injured.
Craig Slater was maybe there at that time.
He was, yes.
And one other.
Yes, who you've just mentioned. He's got
Scott Shepherd has been there and back.
That's right. So the pair of them were at the club, both left and came back. But yes, they were. I should maybe have checked who was in the team, the entire squad at that point. Because now you say Stuart, it's like when you think you've got a smart arse question and someone then gets you, fuck, hang this up, absolutely fuck this.
See if you want to turn this into a quiz, bring in Craig Anderson.
Yeah,
don't you do it.
It's like
I came up with 3 and you said there was only 2.
Yeah, it's like we've got a quiz. Who's hosting it? Craig. Oh, that's amazing. Telfer. Oh, fuck that guy. Listen, leave the quizzing. I'm not 100% sure what my speciality is, but it's not quizzing, as we have just found out there. But up next, 2 difficult games for both sides. Clyde versus Stranraer.
As impressive as I've been with Stranraer recently, I've probably been more impressed by Clyde. I'll probably go for a home win.
And Forfar Athletic host the Spartans.
Difficult to think that Forfar will get anything from this one. I'll go with Spartans.
Fair play, Shaughan. I think that will do us for the time being. Is there anything else to add?
Don't think so, no.
It's a shame we're only doing 3 games because there's so many good things to talk about. I've been involved with the BBC podcasts in the morning. I was on at the weekend there with Scott Fraser, the Ross County midfielder, and great fun to do, but they're just really bite-sized. It's like you make a point about one team and you're on to the next. And it's just that when we're doing these, we could spend, we have done, spent 10.5 hours talking about all the teams. And it's a shame they're so, well, it's a shame they're so bite-sized because there was so much interesting stuff in the Championship, especially that we could have talked about. Like Ross County losing 3-0 to Arbroath, Wraith Rovers drawing with Greenock Morton, all very interesting results.
Not necessarily Lao, and that made one of the dullest games I've ever attended. Really, really poor stuff, and everybody who was involved should bow their heads.
Yeah, and we could have talked about the top of the table League 2 clash between the Spartans and East Kilbride. Paddy Martin getting an assist for leathering the ball up the park, and Cammy Russell finishing.
Once again, East Kilbride's defence really letting them down.
Yeah, aye. But listen, there'll be plenty of time. It's good. We try to talk about every single team because you don't want to get into the habit of just talking about the same team. So when we talk about Forfar, we might not talk about them with the same degree of knowledge as we do the other side, but at least we hope you enjoyed that to some degree. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I hope you did. Shaughan and I are going to record a bonus podcast for our Patreon listeners. It's an In Defence Of episode, part of that series, where Shaughan McGuigan will be defending Danny Lennon's Child Island. If you want to hear Shaughan McGuigan defend Danny Lennon's Child Island, you need to subscribe to our Patreon account, patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. You can access that and hours of great content for as little as £2 per month. It's supreme value for money. And do watch A View from the Terrace too. I know I spoiled it there by saying something that may or may not be in the show, but do get a watch. It's really fun at the moment. So Shaughan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it leaves me to say, enjoy your football, and much like young Frankie Ferry interviewing his father Simon after East Kilbride's match against the Spartans, please do so respectfully. Very, very nice. I like how he called his dad Si.
Calls his father Si. Fair play.
Oh no, it was really cute, really cute. It's good to, he's class. Frankie Ferry's class. He's got something. He'll be coming for our jobs soon. I mean, he can only be about 11, Shaughan, so I think we've probably got another 3 or 4 years at this before Fowler's saying, guys, we're getting Frankie to do the lower league pod instead. He's watching a lot more League 2 football than you guys are, so we're going to get him on to do it instead. But great stuff. Thank you very much. Take care. Goodbye.